examples where the suffix, the group of letters at the end of the word, give us a hint. It gives us a hint about the meaning of the word. So there are two kind of focuses I want to look at for this lesson. In this lesson also, I'm going to introduce just a few suffixes. There are a lot more than these, but these are a few common ones. So let's take a look. First, I want to focus on some suffixes that really change grammatically how we use the word. So if you've watched these videos, maybe you've seen lessons about making the comparative form of adjectives. So in that video, we saw that we use ER or IER endings to make the comparative form of adjectives. Let's look at some examples. So first one, small. The adjective small becomes the comparative form smaller by adding ER. So ER is our suffix here. It creates the comparative form of the adjective. Same thing with the adjective big. By adding ER, the suffix ER, we create the comparative form, bigger. Happy is another example. Happy ends in Y. So when we make the comparative form, we remove the Y sound and use IER. This is irregular for adjectives that end in Y. So ER and IER are suffixes. They change adjectives to a comparative adjective form. Let's look at another similar example then. When we want to make the superlative form of an adjective, remember superlative means the most extreme. This can be the most extreme in terms of like the best or the top or the most of something, or the other extreme, so the worst, the least good of something. So when we want to talk about the most extreme versions of adjectives, we use the superlative form. To make the superlative form, we use EST or IEST. IEST, like we saw here, is used for adjectives which end in Y. Let's look at some examples. Same words as we used here. The adjective small becomes smallest in the superlative form. EST is the suffix. The adjective big becomes biggest. EST is the suffix here. And finally, happy becomes happiest with IEST as the suffix. Great. So here are just a couple of common examples of the way grammar can be altered. Grammar can be changed by using a suffix. Let's look at another one though. Let's look at the suffix NESS, ness. So this suffix can be attached to some words to create nouns. So again, let's look at a few examples, and also please be careful. We cannot attach ness to all words to create nouns. It's kind of a trick. Sometimes native speakers like to play around and attach suffixes to words that typically do not take that suffix. So sometimes native speakers will joke around and make new words this way. But there are only a few, or I should say there are a limited number of words that we can officially use ness with. These are a few examples. So let's look at, again, a few adjectives that we can change into nouns by adding ness. Here, happy again. Happy changes to happiness, the noun form, by adding ness. Again, we follow this same Y rule. The Y changes to an I for adjectives that end in Y. So happy, adjective, becomes noun, happiness, by adding the ness suffix. Let's continue on to the next adjective, sad. So sad can become the noun form sadness by adding the suffix ness, sadness here. One more example is the adjective weak. We create the noun form weakness by adding the ness suffix. So these are a few examples where adding a suffix creates a noun. Over here, we changed to the comparative, the superlative form of an adjective. Here, we change a word from an adjective to a noun just by adding a suffix. So these are a few types of suffix, or these are a few suffixes where the suffix actually changes the grammar. Okay. Let's look, however, at some cases where suffix, as I talked about